Hey everybody, welcome back to Coaster Rant. This is the start of a Minecraft tutorial series where I show you how to make your parks look a lot better and more detailed. I'm not focusing on roller coasters in this series, just buildings, landscaping, terraforming, etc. This first episode, as you can see by the title, is buildings and facades, which is really one of the key aspects of building an amusement park. Anyways, let's get into the video. So starting off, I want to go over some building techniques to just add to your builds that make them look so much better. And first of all is these windows. And the most common type of window I see is this standard box window. There's no depth, it's just a rectangle, and it's just a flat wall, and it just doesn't look good at all. I think all you really need to do is add an overhang and a planter under it. And there is two types of planters. You can use this grass block one, or you could just use this stair with flower pots on it. And really, it's super simple just to add these into your builds, and they give it a little bit of life and a little bit of just some atmosphere. You gotta really make them stand out so that way they look nice. And obviously you can use different blocks. You don't have to stick with this brick and dark prismarine palette here. But another thing I'd recommend is putting a light inside of your window if you aren't going to have an interior. Although if you are, I wouldn't put that there, and I wouldn't put these walls back there, because I mean it'd be really pointless to just be wasting space inside of the actual build. And really, I think adding that light, because it's not dark, actually makes it look like there's something going on inside. Maybe it looks like a display case. And that's really it for this type of window right here. But with these glass block windows, I would not use them, like I wouldn't use them flat against the wall. I'd indent them a little bit and maybe put a stair or a slab or something, just so it looks a bit better. Although the only problem with this is that if you make it any smaller, it might look worse, so I'd recommend using these for big open areas like in restaurants. But using these in standard little shops like on a midway or something, it's not gonna look the greatest because it's so small, and it just will not look good. So moving on, we've got roofs. And roofs are really what can make or break a build. It's such a simple task really to just fix these up. And when I mean fix these up, it's because the most common roof type I see is this kind right here, where it's just a triangle and it's flat against the wall. I do not think this looks good in any way, and you should go for a more flat roof. I'd recommend putting some slabs and stairs, mixing those together, and then just putting some upside down stairs under these, like the top of the roof, just makes it look more curvy and more natural. And with these overhangs, I'd recommend just using a wall and then the same color as the roof and using slabs. You can use anything, you don't even really have to put this here, and you can still make it work, although I do think doing it like this makes it look so much better. So the next thing I want to talk about is really just the shape of your building. And most people will just go with a rectangle or a square like this, but I think this isn't really a bad thing to do. It's very, if you're trying to get the basics and you're trying to get better, I would recommend just sticking to this. And then I feel like once you get more advanced and once you learn these other techniques, you can start adding some shape, kind of like this, because there's more you can do with this than you can with a box. And it's just really easy to just make this go from a box like this to making it more of this kind of shape, which I wouldn't really know what to call it. I guess just call it an L shape. But that's really it for this topic. There isn't much to talk about here, just besides just add a little bit of flavor, add a little bit of shape, get creative with it is really the main point of this part of the tutorial. Before I show you some examples, I want to show you a couple different palettes that are very common and I like to use a lot. And these are, if you go into any of my builds or just look at anything, it's almost a guaranteed you'll see at least one of these palettes. And they're super simple, and of course you can always add on to them. Just these are really the basics, and if you're really bad at making buildings and stuff like that, this is a good place to start. And the first one is the brick one, which this is the most common, but it's also the easiest to build because there's so much you can do with brick. Almost every block in the game goes well with brick. And really, I think the best, I'd rather use granite over smooth stone for the walls, but really what I'm talking about here is just the base of it. I wouldn't use a brick base. I'd use brick as the wall and smooth stone as the bottom, or you could of course go with granite too. And then for the roof, you can add way more than just dark oak, but dark oak is what I think looks the best with this kind of, just looks the best with this kind of style. And then for the overhangs and stuff like that and just details, andesite really goes well with this. It just kind of blends in and matches. And then for trap doors and just regular doors, I think spruce and dark oak are easily the best because they just fit with this kind of style. So the next kind of palette is the other one I used in one of the examples, and this is just a light gray terracotta and a diorite. This is the one that I feel like is going to look the worst unless you really detail it. If you put a lot of detail into this style, it's going to look good, but if you just do a very simple, just blank wall with one door and a window, it's going to look kind of gross because it doesn't work together. And andesite, again, is another block that works here, which andesite really works with everything in the game. And dark prismarine, I'd say, is probably the best for roof and overhangs and stuff like that. And then for doors, I definitely just go with a birch, acacia, and then maybe a spruce, which the spruce is probably the worst looking, but I do think that it could fit well. And especially if you wanted to add like shutters to a window, I think it would definitely fit. So the next palette is the one you see the least, I'd say, out of these four. And this is the red terracotta palette, as I like to call it. This one is definitely the hardest to build and make something out of because there's not a lot of blocks that fit with it. But I think if you just use these and be creative with them, I think it'll work really well. Which, for roofs, I definitely just stick to spruce and jungle. I wouldn't really expand onto anything else unless it's andesite. And speaking of andesite, I really think that a base of like just really the base of this kind of building is really andesite's definitely the best to use here. And for the last palette is the one that I think is probably, in my opinion, the best looking, and I just think it's another one that's really easy to expand upon, and that is just a simple white building. It doesn't have to be white concrete, it could be quartz, it could even be bone block if you really wanted to, which I think bone block is a really nice block. It's one of my favorites in the entire game. But there's just so much that fits well with white concrete, white, really just everything that is a white block in the game. Even a opposite color, blackstone, still looks really nice with the just the white buildings. And then, of course, with 1.16, which is where we got the blackstone, and we also got these quartz bricks, which I think look really nice. There's something I feel like the game has been waiting for, at least I've been waiting for, because quartz is it's just a nice block. And I think that if you added some smooth quartz into it, you could really make a little bit of detail or a lot of detail just with this simple palette right here. And literally everything in the game, except for some concrete blocks, goes well with white. And yeah, I'd say that's really the 4 palettes that I'd recommend using if you are going to start building and you are very new to this kind of area, if you only build roller coasters or flat rides. And these don't even have to apply to only amusement parks. They can apply to cities too. They could apply to really anything that has these buildings in it that are really small and compact. So the last thing I want to show you is just 2 examples using all those techniques I just showed you and some of the palettes that I just went over. And this is example 1. This is using brick. And as you can see, if you just put a lot of detail but not too much detail, I think it'll just look so much better. And even a little bit of shrubbery, which I will have a video on later. But shrubbery, I think, is one of the it's one of the key points of a build. It just makes everything look so much nicer. And this is really simple. All I really did here was just put a brick, really just make a brick wall, and then put this kind of roof on top of it, which I think is a very common but nice looking roof, which is the kind where you have the basic roof right here, and then you kind of have this area that this triangle right here, right in the middle. Just kind of give it a little bit of depth and a little bit of, just make it look more unique and less of just a regular roof, I guess you'd say. And here's example 2, which is I made this for an example of like a corner kind of shop or a restaurant or whatever. You don't really see these a lot in regular amusement parks. You see these a lot in theme parks, and especially in Disney has a lot of these style where they have like the door in the middle and then like a window and then stuff on the sides. Which this one is also really shows the power of just how nice overhangs can look with these dark prismarine slabs and stairs. And then of course we got a little bit of shrubbery down there. And then for these windows, I went as far, and like for ones where you have them more towards the ground, I'd recommend like putting something inside of them. Like, you know, in here I put a laptop and a lamp, and then like I guess a flower pot, or it kind of looks like a coffee mug too. And then some benches right there. And it's this one really, when you really look into it, there's not too much detail, just there's a lot going on. And it just looks super nice, and I feel like if you put buildings next to it and kind of had it like line up with that one over there, I feel like you could easily make a pretty simple main street but a really detailed one at the same time. Now I'm going to show you what not to do when making a building, and this is the most common type of building I see, and this is, I don't even really know what to call it, but it's where nothing matches, it just doesn't look good. I mean, this color palette does not match at all, which I like the warped planks, but it does not fit with this birch. And with the windows, as you can see, I just put a completely flat window, no depth. There's nothing on the inside, so in reality, if you were to have nothing on the inside, you'd probably put like a wall back here, but there's just grass and there's just nothing here. And the roof is it's just a box, and it looks like a survival house. It just doesn't, like, you shouldn't put these on your main street. You shouldn't actually build these anywhere at all. And really, this is the type of building I see most for people who struggle with making nice detailed buildings. And I think that really, if you just apply some of these techniques to this style of building, I think you could really make it look so much better. Well, that's it for the first episode of the Minecraft Building Guide. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like, and if you like the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys next time.